Welcome everyone to Why Do You Do, a program about passion and purpose and why we do the things we do. I am Sam Cordes and today I'm in conversation with Evan Klose. Evan is a seasoned business analyst with over 15 years experience and is currently the portfolio BA for HAMS. Evan is also the chairperson of the Adelaide Branch of the International Institute of Business Analysts. Welcome, Evan. How are you?
Very well, thank you for the introduction, Sam. How are you today?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for joining me on this.
Pleasure.
So today we'll be talking about the IIBA and getting right into that and how that can help people develop their career and their employment prospects. But before we begin, I'd really love to get to know a little bit about you.
Sure.
So what do you do? What do you do at HAMS?
Right. So as a portfolio BA or business analyst, I'm helping understand the high-level business requirements for large volumes of work that go through our organization. So lots of delivery teams do lots of work at our organization, and traditionally they worked a little bit independently of each other. So part of the team that I'm in, that involves myself as a BA and a solution architect and some project managers and program managers, we help executive management make decisions around what work can be done, should be done, and when it should be done. So day to day, it means sort of triaging new ideas, creating information packs for steering committees, writing business cases. And I also have to keep an eye on the progress and scope that the delivery teams are working on so that I can help them communicate quickly back to executive if they need to make directional changes, or I can remind them of what our strategic goals are there.
Okay, so it sounds like you're more working as a strategic BA as opposed to operational or tactical.
Yep. And in the agile space, we would say that I'm working more at the strategy horizon than the delivery horizon or initiative horizon. Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm all across it, and my company's going through so much change at the moment in the way it organizes and prioritizes and delivers work. And so a hefty amount of my time at the moment also goes into, I guess, monitoring and helping to improve our organization's working processes. So it's a super interesting, challenging and busy time at HAMS at the moment.
Okay, excellent. So just quickly, what does HAMS stand for?
Good question. It's the Hospital and Medical Benefits System. So it's a set of software and services that provide the ability for some of Australia's smaller health funds to manage their members and hospitals and all that sort of stuff, to provide private health insurance for people in Australia.
Okay. And so just coming back to your work, what do you love about it?
So I love business analysis. I love understanding problems. I spend all of my time thinking about all sorts of problems, like at work, at home, the real world, whatever it is. I spend so much of my time thinking about how problems got to where they were and whether there was a different way they could have gone, and whether something different should have been done. And I love looking at the solutions as well and trying to figure out, how did people come up with that, or what information did they have that I can't see, or what could they have done differently a little bit. So was there anything really interesting or pivotal that happened after that? If they'd known it, would they have changed their mind? And as a BA, I get paid to do that. So like, how good is that?
Is there win-win?
Yeah, that's right. I just really love thinking, just simple things about, I wonder why they would do that, and just trying to figure it out in my head.
And asking those questions. It's actually interesting because I'm a big believer that you can't really do anything well as a business analyst until you really understand what the problem is. So much of the time that I spend in my work is asking those questions around what is happening, why is it happening, what is the problem, what's the issue, what's the impact, before actually even thinking about the solution or the direction to take.
And understanding the path that they took towards that problem. How did they get where they are, and what's the background around? Because is it it might be a problem, but is it going to be is it going to be a problem forever, or is it really the most important thing we could be working on? And
Yeah, that's right.
It gets really interesting.
Cool. So just going back in time, where did you start and what sparked you to become a BA?
Okay, so I have a long career. I don't know. I started working before I finished school, and finished high school a little bit early, but then really went into working in hospitality for a number of years. So I found working in 5-star hotels and bars and clubs and things like that helped me strengthen my, I guess, verbal communication skills. So it was to spend a lot of time talking with people I didn't know and finding out a lot about them really quickly to make their time better or deal with their problems or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I then figured after a little while that the pay wasn't very good in hospitality and neither were the hours. So I needed to do something about that. And I'd always been interested in computers as a kid. So I went and did an advanced diploma in business IT because it sounded like the most hedging my bets the most, because it kind of covered all these different parts of and aspects within IT. And I thought, I'll see what goes there. And within a couple of months of starting that, I started working in help desks. So doing on-site IT support, then later into product support and design for businesses. And it was there that I came across this role of the e-commerce analyst, they called it. And all I was doing was really helping our business in a transport organization design the direction that our software was going for our customers. And it was there that I started like really thinking about when people would come to me with requests, just naturally looking at, okay, so that's going to cost us $15,000, but it's for one customer and it's going to make every future release umpteen more, more complex or whatever the case may be. And I wasn't developing these, but I was essentially going to have to pay for them through the organization. So I really started looking at that cost versus real customer value and how much really, instead of maybe fixing the label, was there some other thing that we could do to address their problem. And then I went working in a like really heavily in a web transformation project as a subject matter expert. And it was there that I first experienced business analysis as a process or as a person. I'd never really known about it, but before that point,
even though all the time you've been doing it.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Been doing business analysis activities, but never really knew what a business analyst did. And so then I was in rooms with BAs and project managers and all sorts of stuff, UX designers. And I was their subject matter expert because I'd had so much time in our business and so much time dealing with these e-commerce applications. So I got to work closely with a lot of those project specialists. I got to see what I call the belly of the beast, because I was working inside, like on the same floor as all of these project people, and I was spending the whole time around these project people looking at what they were doing. And I'm like, oh, this looks kind of fun. So that when I resigned from the e-commerce analyst role, so I was going to leave the organization, I was very quickly swept up and asked if I wanted to be a business analyst full time, because they could see a lot of those skills in me that I hadn't really thought of yet. And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. But what I realized pretty quickly was that it wasn't the tools or techniques. It wasn't knowing Jira. It wasn't really writing a proper process map. It was the mindset that I had and the desire to be, to question our value and articulate our needs. And, I had to learn how to write the requirements in the way that people wanted to hear them. But really, I had those initial traits that were I guess powerful enough to see me through early on.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a big believer that a BA with the right skill set, the right mindset, can work across any domain, and that they can move around and hit the ground running and do well. If understanding the ability to ask the right questions and identify a problem, engage in the right way, communicate in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that old that old thing that even if you know, so you take it to another field and go, I work in IT support, even though I know how to use a call logging tool using the ITIL process, you know that the minute you go to another organization, they might even have the same tool, but it'll be customized in a particular way. And they will have interpreted the process completely different. And BA is the same. You need to have those core underlying competencies and capabilities, but the how the work gets on the page differs from organization to organization, team to team, person to person.
Yeah. So being a little bit adaptable and versatile helps as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when do you feel that you're truly at your best?
So this is like a really interesting question to pose, because I've watched a couple of your videos previously and I've heard this question before, so I was a little bit prepared for it. And I feel like I'm at my best when I'm listening and processing and figuring out the problem, and when I've got the time and the space and the safety to conceptualize a problem and maybe some of the solution options, but that's not so important. So if I feel confident enough to be able to ask and I shouldn't say this, but the dumb questions, so that I'm able to stop the conversation if I'm really not following what's going on, that's when I know that I'm at my best as a BA.
Yeah. Taking
in the information, spending time processing that information and having that time, which you don't always have, but having that time, and then being able to circle around and go, actually, well, this is what I understood out of all of that. Have I got it close to the mark? That's a really good feeling for me.
Yeah, I actually completely relate to that. So in terms of core values, what is the one, or maybe you've got more core values that you are unwilling to compromise on?
So the core value that I hold the most dear, I think, is transparency. So transparency being different to honesty slightly, in that I like everybody to understand where I'm at. I like to understand where everybody else is at. I like to, if things go wrong, I like to let people know that things are going wrong as soon as possible. I like other people to let me know that. But I'm not unwilling to compromise on it if the situation warrants it or requires it. So I think I try to, even like, it is a true core value, and if it was my team, I would, and I owned the whole process, I would want transparency in 99 out of 100 cases or more. But I think being unwilling to compromise on anything as a business analyst can be can get you into a little bit of trouble if you're not willing to listen. Even if I never compromise on transparency, at least being open to the potential to compromise on it, I think helps me or reminds me that hearing all of the facts first is pretty important. Stops me from making assumptions, I think.
So when might you compromise?
So I absolutely see that I'll use a pretend situation, but if I was delivering something for a customer that was being worked on in the room behind me here, and the room was currently on fire, I might not immediately be transparent about that. I may not share that sort of information. Like, I understand it's on fire, but maybe I don't know the depth of the fire. So as in, if there's just a little bin that's on fire in the next room, do I actually need to be transparent with my customer about that? Or do I need to go and find out a bit more information? Or if there was somebody in danger, somebody's safety was at risk through some of that transparency, I'd absolutely compromise on it if I needed to. I still hold it true, and I want it at the forefront, but
So it sounds like one value being transparency, may come into conflict with another value that wins the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, very interesting, Evan. Thanks. So about the IIBA. Okay, so how much time do you spend volunteering as chairperson?
Sure. So it's a bit of an emerging thing at the moment, because over the COVID times for the last couple of years, it's probably been a little bit higher than what I anticipate it being moving forward. But essentially, most of our volunteers, myself included, would be spending an average of 2 to 4 hours per week across the year on volunteering. I'm spending 4 to 6 hours at the moment as I'm trying to set up a little bit of stuff going around, but that's on average. There are definitely some weeks where I'm not spending any time at all, if it happens to be a bit of a quiet time between some meetings, or we've got a few things in the short-term planned or what have you. And then other weeks just might be chaos with some facilitation of some study groups and a couple of meetings here and there, and maybe an event. So that's about the time that I spend on it. I juggle that with a few other things that I do for in a volunteering capacity for some things to do with the kids and whatnot. So I have a fairly full outside of work life. It's quite interesting, but I mean, volunteering is important to me. It is really important, and it's on I guess a few different levels. So from an early age, I recognized that things that benefit me don't just happen. So, sporting clubs and things like that, I understood quite early. And when I say quite early, I mean, in my late teens, I realized that, hey, a coach doesn't just happen, and balls don't just magically appear, and grounds aren't mowed by nobody, right? So all of this stuff has to happen. And I kind of sat back and did the maths and went, oh, my $60 a year or whatever for fees can't cover payment for everything, right? So there must be people that are doing this for us because they believe in it. And so I think if people need to do things, why shouldn't it be me sometimes? But also I want my kids to understand that things don't just happen either. That's even though that they might see that driving them to sport on a particular day is all that happens, there's actually a lot that goes in behind the scenes. And the last thing, and probably the most selfish of it, is I get a really great feeling from seeing people succeed. And it feels even better if I know that I've contributed, even if it's just a little bit to that success, or I've at least held up stuff around them so that they could be successful. And, you get that in work, but there's a certain expectation that part of that's what you're getting paid for. So outside of that in that volunteer world, I can kind of take it as, that was nice to give that little bit of help to somebody successful.
Yeah, lovely. It's nice to at least make an impact on, even in a small way, on other
absolutely
lives. Give back to the community.
And I know that you understand that, given the work that you've done and the conversations that we've had over the last year and whatever. So it's really good to see other like-minded people.
Yeah, for sure. So so what does the IIBA do exactly?
Sure. Cool. So IIBA, or the International Institute for Business Analysis, is like any industry organization. Essentially, some of the core things that I think it tries to do globally is seeks to standardize language within the industry and the processes that we undertake. Seeks to establish a best practice and set the benchmark for the way people do this particular thing. And IIBA is not unique in that regard. So anything that I mention here, if business analysis is not your field, then there are plenty of other industry organizations that can provide any of, to varying degrees, a lot of the stuff that I talk about here. I just happen to love IIBA because of my love for business analysis, and it's, the one industry body that's only for business analysis, if that makes sense. There are a lot of other industry bodies that include it. And that's why I've, I guess, pledged my allegiance to them. But from a global standpoint, IIBA provides training and education materials and certifications. It gives immediate access to the business analysis book of knowledge, as well as hundreds and hundreds of books online by some of business analysis's most prominent contributors. At a local level, can help you put you in touch with like-minded BAs in your city. Here in the Adelaide market, it's an especially close-knit community. So finding a way to connect to others is so important for your job prospects here.
Okay, so, and that sort of segues into my next question, which is how does the IIBA help the BA profession, in particular graduates and aspirationals and early career professionals?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So I see that the IIBA BAs the BAs, if that makes sense. So essentially they are the facilitator for us. As an organization, they help foster collaboration with experts, practitioners, employers, aspiring BAs, as well as all the varying degrees of business analysts to, I guess, build awareness and a common understanding. As well as unifying some of the language, because we all work in different organizations. Business analysis or business analysts in organizations will tend to align their processes and the naming of those processes probably more in line with what the rest of their organization is doing. So when it comes to understanding and having conversations with other people, this book that sits in between us all helps us have that common language. So I know to translate, I don't know, EML diagram or whatever, we might call it a database schema, but really what we mean is it's an entity relationship diagram, but whatever. You and I can talk about it, and we both know that it's actually this step in the process that we're taking. The diagrams that I create or the way I write it might differ, who approves it and whatever else might differ, but we've still got that common knowledge between you and me that this is a solid foundational step for BAs. So IIBA is an all-encompassing organization, but it does have a very distinct, I guess, view to be able to benefit corporations with many BAs, BA managers, senior BAs, mid-level BAs, junior or emerging BAs. And so they really do have something in their services and whatever to help and provide for anybody that's interested in growing.
Okay, thanks. So if I'm a graduate or aspirational BA, what would be the first thing that I should do when I go to the IIBA website?
Well, I have to say this. I'll let you know that I am a volunteer, so I'm not getting paid for it, but they should join as an IIBA member. So I understand that the cost is not insignificant, especially to people that are studying. But I would counter that argument that says that with the sheer volume of reference material that you immediately have access to is worth the ticket price alone. So the Business Analysis Book of Knowledge, while very challenging to read in one sitting, is really, really important for foundational knowledge around how business analysts worldwide do what they do. But then there's also this subset of areas with videos to watch and papers to read and books that are just written by people on business analysis. So there's a huge amount there. What it also gives them access to is any events in their local geography that is being put on by a chapter are available to them on the most part for free. Not every event is for free, but at the very least, the events are heavily discounted for IIBA members. Because the first thing that a graduate or aspirational BA should do is network within their local geography. And this is the quickest path to it, I think.
So IIBA events are a must.
Yes.
And because it helps them with networking and getting in touch with other people in the industry.
Absolutely. And not just IIBA events. There are plenty of other events in every city. You'll find in Adelaide, there are events that are organised through Meetup for Agile. There are events that are organised through LinkedIn for business analysts outside of IIBA. There are lots of ways to get networking, especially now coming out of COVID. There's a bit of a bubble in Adelaide, so would encourage people to go have a search and see what they can find.
So if you join the Adelaide chapter, you can join in on the online events or go to events in Sydney or Melbourne or anywhere else.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
What about in the world?
any online events we're doing
Yeah.
in Australia are
Mhm.
accessible to all IIBA members.
Okay.
And we're in the planning phase of 3 in-person events in Adelaide for the remainder of this year, being
Okay. Tell me
June
more.
2022. I can't
Oh,
tell you too
okay.
much more yet.
All right. Watch this
There's still,
space.
yeah, we've still got a few signatures, a few dotted lines to sign and
Okay.
whatnot
Yeah.
before we can move forward. But
Well, that's exciting. Yeah.
so we do have that, and I also know that there are a few people within the local business analysis space that are organising bi-monthly, every 2 months,
Yeah.
are organising an informal dinner. They've had a few this year
Yeah.
available, through LinkedIn for
Mm.
you just come along and buy yourself a drink or have something to eat and meet other BAs as well. But I would really encourage anybody in Adelaide looking for work. It's your quickest path.
Yeah. So do you have any, just on networking, do you have any tips that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. So this is a really interesting one because I think as you're emerging into a new industry or even emerging into the working environment at large, it can be quite intimidating to be around people that either are or appear to be a lot more experienced and senior than you. And I know that my first couple of IIBA events when I was just starting out as an official BA felt that way. But really, I would encourage anybody to participate as much as possible in any of those networking events. So even if they're not just networking, by asking a couple of, if it's a talk, even asking a question or two, people will notice and remember that. If somebody mentions something and they've called something out, don't be afraid to go and talk to them afterwards to ask them a question. I can tell you about a little experience that I had.
Yes.
I was hiring for a business analyst a couple of years ago for another organization, and I had to interview a number of candidates, and based on the interview, we shortlisted 2, and the 2 candidates were purely from an interview perspective, because I had a team with me, were neck and neck. But one of those people I had remembered meeting for about 2.5 minutes 2 years earlier at an event, and this person asked me a specific question about an area that interested me with business analysis, and I remembered that, and that was the linchpin that got them across the line, right? Which was, I remember this person when I wasn't interviewing them, and I remember that they were genuine about their question and had a genuine interest in business analysis, and that was enough for me to go, well, all other things being equal, that just put them that tiny little bit ahead. And that was from 2 years earlier. Like I recognized the face and maybe the name, and then I went back to my LinkedIn and looked at when I connected with them. I'm like, yeah, that was then. So it can make a huge difference. But the best way that I can think to connect with people when you're first starting out is to ask them about them.
Yes.
So approaching somebody and asking them what they do or why they're at the event, what they find interesting about the place that they work in. Just have a few very, very general and open-ended questions, and let people speak to you. And if they are open for networking and they talk for ages, like perhaps maybe Sam, you and I could, if we were in the same room together. If they talk for a little bit, eventually, after you've asked them a couple of questions or two, they're going to come back to you, and that's really your first opportunity that you should be expressing to them. If you're either looking for work or looking to make connections, you should be waiting for that question to be asked for you. It can make an immense difference for
that's right,
any future prospects that you have.
Excellent. That's right. So if I'm a graduate or an aspirational and I approach you at an event, the best thing I can do is ask you about you and what you're doing and engage with you, and that will make more of an impact than, say, going up to you and say, hey, I want a job. Do you have one?
Absolutely. Even though your desire and the outcome may be the same.
Yes.
But I can tell you, if you ask me a few times about things that are going on in where I'm working, because it's not that I'm trying to
Yeah.
suggest it's all about me, but if you ask me about my organization or about what I enjoy about my job, or if I give some information around the kind of work that I'm doing, and you ask me just an open-end question like, what do you find most interesting about that? Or what have you found most challenging about that? Eventually I'm going to come around and ask you. And then the next thing personally that I'm probably going to say, if we've had a good little conversation for a minute or two, is, okay, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me where you've come from. Tell me what you're interested in and what you've tried. And then if that conversation even goes remotely well, the next thing I'm going to do is walk you over to somebody else in our network and say, hey, you've got to meet Sam. Sam's just started, but, you know, she's looking for all of these things.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's done this thing and it sounds really interesting. You should talk to this person. And it's amazing, by just starting that conversation in the right way, how much benefit you will have, even if it doesn't equate to a job immediately. It'll be such an immense benefit for you, for learning, for information, for confidence, for all sorts of things, even if it doesn't eventuate in a job. Because, you know, if I'm not hiring at the moment, I'm not hiring, but you get that little opportunity to practice talking, to practice communicating, to practice listening, to really showing all of those good BA skills that you need to rehearse and need to practice and what have you.
All right, thank you. Very good. So just one question about certifications. So IIBA has 7 or 8, I think, certifications.
Yes, a myriad.
Yes, myriad. So which certification, and actually, should a early career professional go for a certification in Australia?
So that's a really interesting question, and I'm going to separate it. So I definitely think that any aspirational BA should 100% be able to pass the ECBA exam as soon as possible.
Yes.
So that means they should read the Babok, they should understand the core content underneath it. They should be able to communicate the core content of that. They should maybe even consider doing a study group with other like-minded people to help learn that, to build a little bit more network. And then certification itself, I think, has to be a personal decision from there, because certification is not cheap. And I understand a lot of people that are emerging, maybe here doing tertiary education, maybe here from another country, and that's another expense. I think that for your average recruiter, if you have an ECBA, where that's the entry-level certification, if you have an ECBA certification, you're probably going to get looked at above others. But I think it's also market dependent. So at the moment, I don't think an ECBA certification would earn you more money. It just may get you a greater job prospect, or it might get you seen to more often. Whereas there are definitely other markets worldwide, or other times in Australia, where I could tell you a CCBA or a CBAP certification could mean as much as 15% higher remuneration for a senior level BA. I'm not sure that's the case right at the moment. So that's where it's a hard thing to say, but you should absolutely know the content. I think there's a lot of great value in that. You should try and speak to other people about that content and be able to pass that exam. So hopefully that's a good enough recommendation anyway.
I think it's perfect. Thank you. All right. So in my work, talking to in career coaching work, I speak to a lot of early career aspirational business analysts, graduates, international students. So in terms of your success, what has made a difference for you, and how do you think it can help others?
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting question. There are a couple of things over my career that aren't specific to business analysis that I think have helped me. One thing And I'll save you the long-winded story. When I worked in a supermarket as a 15-year-old, I had to collect trolleys, and I didn't like collecting trolleys. And I used to whinge and moan and complain about it. I was smaller than everybody else. And finally, a new person came along who was 3 months younger than me, who was newer than me. And I'm like, sweet, I'm out from no more collecting trolleys. And then I was disappointed to find out that I had to collect trolleys again. And eventually, I don't know why, as a 15-year-old with a boss who was 6'4", I said, why am I always the one to do this? And he said, because when I ask you to do something that I'm paying you to do, you complain about it, and that makes me want to punish you. And as a 15-year-old, that was both hard to hear and also really transformative, because the next week I said, hey, do you want me to go collect trolleys? And the next week I said, do you want me to go collect trolleys? And then by the third or fourth week, I didn't have to collect trolleys again in the 2 years that I worked there after that. And it just made me realize that, firstly, if you're getting paid to do a job, so long as it's not dangerous, I would encourage people to do the crappy work. Because if you do the crappy work with a smile on your face, most organizations are going to move you on to something better. And I experienced that a number of times in IT and whatever else, where I would just get the stuff that people didn't really want to do done, and then I was allowed to do more around what I wanted to do, whether that was study or what have you. So that's the first thing that I think, especially people that are but spend a lot of time studying. A boss can't say that to a 20-year-old in the same way that they can say that to a 15-year-old. And I'm worried that people that go through education right up until 24 or 25 in some countries, they might miss out on some of these really simple, basic sorts of conversations that don't tend to get had later on in life.
Those harder lessons.
That you just can't get away with. I mean, and nor should you. You shouldn't be able to get away with it in a corporate environment. But as a 15-year-old working 4 hours a week at a supermarket in suburban Adelaide, that was okay to do, right? And it was really, and I could really see the difference that it made on my life from then on. The other part that I think that I have found the most benefit from is being honest with my own failure, both to myself and to others. So understanding that I am not perfect and that nobody is, and really the person who expects me to be the most perfect is myself. But that if I'm open and honest and transparent with the times that I make mistakes, and provide, I guess, options as to where we can go from here, that it will take you a long way, especially in the BA world, because we don't have all the time in the world to get everything perfect. And that means sometimes we muck things up a little bit, but I find if I own it, give a pathway outwards, here's what I'll do in the future to try and make sure that doesn't work again. That doesn't happen again. I don't get yelled at. I don't even get looked at with disappointment. I just get looked at with, okay, cool. Okay, I can see why that happened. Cool. What are we doing to move on?
That's really brave, being transparent and honest.
It doesn't always work out for me in every situation, but it works out for me more often than not.
And it's about your own integrity as well.
I also think with a face like this, if I am sad or disappointed, I find it pretty hard to hide that anyway. So I think even if I'm not saying the honest and transparent words, maybe my face is.
Let's hope.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Evan. So just for you personally in your life or your career or the IIBA, what's next for you?
So it's a really easy question to answer, because at the moment it's just business analysis. I can't see myself really doing much else. I can see myself in different organizations, in different challenges, in different projects, doing different things, but it's always going to come back to that business analysis for me, because everything that we do and everything that the books say we should do and everything that I feel like we should do, I would do anyway. So I might as well get paid for learning problems and figuring out why we did things and trying to think of how we could do better. And make myself a
Yeah.
little money and whatever along the way. I guess that the real goal in life is to balance as much as I can in my life with hard work, joy, family, fun, and a good job and some good people. So
Yeah.
I think I'm on that path. So
okay, that's beautiful. Thanks, Evan. Thank you for sharing your experience and wisdom with us. And we learned a lot about the IIBA as well. I'm Sam Cordes in conversation with Evan Klose.